talk somatic OCD and the 5 important pillars to consider when you start your recovery journey. Number 1, knowledge. Only if we know something, we can actively change it. Understand what somatic OCD really is, how it differs from regular OCD, and also understand how your individual somatic OCD cycle is being upheld. So what are the important steps which are constantly being repeated? Because with every OCD, we have a vicious OCD cycle. It's slightly different for somatic OCD, but understanding it, only then we can actively disrupt it and start reprogramming the brain. Secondly, comorbidity is really important to understand that OCD, somatic OCD, is not something which just falls from the sky and hits you in the face. People suffering from it usually have a history of panic disorders, anxiety disorders, depression, PTSD. There's something already in the system leading to OCD as well as to somatic OCD. Remember, OCD is an instrument, is something which we don't purposefully pick up, but it's a methodology or an instrument to reduce actually anxiety or fears. OCD helps us to regain supposedly control and deviates from something much more terrible for us to endure. The underlying feelings and emotions which we want to outrun, OCD is helping us to deviate from it and focus our attention to something else, supposedly regaining control. So understanding the comorbidity is important to understand the function of OCD. Again, only if we understand it, we can actively dismantle it. Number 3, cognitive strategies. If we know how the OCD cycle manifests, we can now actively reprogram and disrupt the cycle. At BNU, we use different methodologies and tools for that, understanding that we need to trick and treat our brain into a new neural pathway. Ultimately, dismantling the OCD cycle is inevitable if we want to heal or recover from sensory OCD. Body-mind connection. When we suffer from somatic OCD, our body is in a high alerted state. Not only our brain, our body as well. Our brain and our body are an emergency response team when it comes to stressful situations. So what we need to do is we need to find tools and strategies to reduce stress in the body. The stress response works both ways, top down, bottom up. Not only do we need to work on our mind, we also need to focus on our body, that our body is also ready to signal back to our head, there is no danger, we can ease into a more relaxed state. So we want to help our brain to come out of survival brain into relaxed mode. So we need to focus on stimulating our parasympathetic nervous system. We do that by including vagus nerve stimulations and exercises, but also we need to understand how the response team work to actively manipulate it and make use of it. 5th very important pillar is core beliefs, core fears. That goes into comorbidities and the underlying core belief or core fear. Usually with OCD, we have the innate insecurity of either not being able to handle certain situations, the fear of losing control, the inability or supposedly perceived inability to control our own body senses, our reactions, our thoughts. We are so overwhelmed by everything which is going on. We have a lack of self-confidence that is manifested in core beliefs and core fears. And we actively have to uncover those, to work with those as well. Now at BNU, fortunately, our approach is very holistic. While we work on the cognitive strategies and the body-mind connection, we'll ultimately touch upon the core beliefs as well. But we also have a module only designated for the core beliefs so that we also can actively tackle those as well. And then lastly, a very, very important tool for recovery is the role of acceptance. I might actually do a separate video on the role of acceptance because there's so much more to know, I think, than rather just saying you have to accept that you might have to live with somatic OCD. But the role of acceptance says or states the following. First and foremost, it resets the alertness in the brain, because our brain is constantly looking for danger. The moment we latch onto something, our brain gets the signal, there's danger, focus on it, never let go of it. The role of acceptance, by simply introducing the thought, it might not go away, I'd rather not have it, but if I have to deal with it for the rest of my life is not ending and I can make it work. Ultimately, this is a cognitive strategy as well, even if we don't believe it at first. But what the role of acceptance does, it interferes with the OCD cycle to begin with, and also it caters to our core beliefs and works a bit on that. Rather than just saying, I have to accept it, that I have to live with this now for the rest of my life, which is not accepting, that's more or less enduring. I'm talking about accepting, inviting it in, meaning that we regain control the moment we start introducing the role of acceptance. We'll make a separate video on this because I think it's a bit more important to get into the details of what the role of acceptance is when it's about sensory-motor OCD. But yeah, these are the 5 important pillars. Let's recap. First and foremost, knowledge and understanding. Know your OCD. Understand how it works. Knowledge is power. Secondly, comorbidities. Understand the function of OCD as well. Also understand that OCD is something which is intertwined and connected with other things you struggle with. Learn tools and methods for cognitive strategies to actively reprogram your brain and dismantle the OCD cycle. Familiarize yourself with body-mind connection. Understand how you can actively use your body to reduce stress and to reprogram and reset alertness in the body as well. Incorporate vagus nerve stimulation exercises every day and make yourself familiar, bottom-up approach. Understand what's the underlying core fear and work on this as well. And then lastly, the role of acceptance. Remember, the role of acceptance is also a strategy, but it's important to kickstart the recovery.